Motorcycles have come a long way in the last 10 years, with more power, better components, and more technology than ever before.
But are they actually better, or has all this stuff just made them too complicated and over-spec'd? Well, I've got a Street Triple 675 and a brand new 2023 Street Triple 765 RS here in the studio today, and we're going to ride them back to back to find out.
But before we get started, a massive thanks to Superbike Factory for supporting the channel by sponsoring this video, but also providing us with this bike. Now this is a 2013 Street Triple 675, almost in stock form apart from the mirrors and fly screen, and with about 5,000 miles on the clock, it's in great condition. Generally, you're looking at about 5 or 6 grand for a bike like this, depending on condition and mileage, and so that's about half of what you'll pay for a new R or RS. So I'm looking forward to finding out whether it's at least half as good out on the road. Now, if you like what you see after watching this video, then do check out the links down in the description for Superbike Factory's full list of stock, with thousands of bikes in their showrooms dotted around the country, and they also offer nationwide delivery, with some bikes delivered for free. So I'd definitely encourage you to take a look, and once again, a massive thanks to Superbike Factory for helping me set this up.
Now, before we get out for a spin, let's take a look at some of the key differences here in the studio, and the first one, of course, would be the engine. Now, you might have guessed this from the names, but the 2013 bike gets the 675cc version of Triumph's inline triple, whereas this brand new bike gets almost 100 more cc's of capacity, as well as all the latest tricks and tweaks inherited from their racing program, given that they've been supplying this engine to the Moto2 Championship for a few years now. And the results are pretty impressive. So while this bike gets a decent amount of power, it makes 107 horsepower up at 11,700 RPM. The RS is a fair step up with 128 horsepower at 12,000 RPM. So that's about 21 horsepower, or almost 20%, and yet made at pretty much the same revs, and there's more meat in the mid-range too, so you've got 80 Newton meters of peak torque as opposed to 69.
Beyond the pure performance specs though, you also get a few extra refinements, like the ride-by-wire throttle as opposed to what's now considered an old-fashioned cable throttle, and there's a slip assist clutch too. So not only does the slipper prevent rear-wheel lockups when you're aggressively going down the gearbox, but also the assist part pulls itself together under load, meaning lighter clutch springs can be used, which lightens up the lever. And anyway, you should be able to avoid super clumsy downshifts with a standard fit quick shifter and auto blipper, which means you don't need to use the clutch and throttle to achieve a smooth downshift anymore. Just press down on the shifter and their shift assist system will do the rest.
As for the chassis, well, you've actually got a very similar looking twin spar aluminium frame, a similar looking bolt-on aluminium subframe, and a similar looking aluminium swing arm too. And while you can see some visual difference in the thickness and the shapes, the fundamentals do look very similar, and that's probably because this has always been known as a sweet handling bike, so why mess with a winning formula? And it also means, with no massive changes to the way that the bike's structured, that the weight is pretty much the same too, so 188 kilograms weight here and 189 for the RS.
Look a little closer at the hardware though, and you'll see that things have moved on quite a bit in terms of the bought-in components of the chassis, like the adjustable Showa big piston separate function fork and the fully adjustable Öhlins piggyback shock. You've also got the latest and greatest BREMBO STYLEMA radial monoblock brake calipers and Pirelli's almost track-ready Super Corsa SP tyres. This is top draw stuff on a mid-price bike, and the details are great too, like the BREMBO radial master cylinder and these lovely span-adjustable levers that have a nice chunky feel in the hand.
Now, you could rightly argue that this is the base Street Triple 675, so the most basic and affordable spec at the time, but even if you compare it to the current base spec Street Triple 765R, you can see that things have definitely moved on, and that bike comes in at just under 9.5 grand. I think nowadays everything just feels a little bit more serious and sporty, and you can kind of feel that in the ergonomics. This older version sits pretty low in the seat at 805 millimeters, and also the bars are fairly fairly narrow, so it does feel like a relatively compact and small bike when you climb aboard. But moving over to the current day, even the R model, which is less aggressive and a little bit more road biased, is 826mm in the seat, so 20mm more. And then this one, the RS, which does favor track riding a little more as well as faster road riding, this gets a longer shock at the rear, so it jacks the back end up, steepens the geometry for quicker handling, and so this one is 835mm in the seat, and they've also fitted it with wider bars, and so generally, you know, you've got more space down to the floor, your hands are much wider apart, and it does feel like a much more substantial bike, and also your bum's up a bit, you're over the bars a bit, and so it does feel that little bit more aggressive too.
Then there's the tech, and I know this one will be contentious. Some of you love the latest gadgets, whilst others couldn't care less and would just take the simplest bike possible, and that's effectively what you get with a 2013 Street Triple. The switchgear is smaller and uncomplicated, and then you've got a part analog, part digital dash that just gives you the basics. Over here though, we've got the latest full-color TFT display with multiple layouts, and through that you can choose from 5 different riding modes, as well as dialing in the latest lean-sensitive rider aids like ABS, traction control, and wheelie control. You can also control your phone or a GoPro from the dash and the switchgear over Bluetooth, and you also get LED lighting all round and self-cancelling indicators. Just compare the features of the two bikes side by side, and you'll see there's way more functionality on offer on the 2023 Street Triple. But does that actually mean that it's better? Well, there's no doubt that this is a phenomenal bike. I rode this and the R version on the track and the road at the launch in Spain earlier this year. And look, for like 9.5 or 11.5 grand, it doesn't really get a great deal better than this. Personally, I'm a massive fan of a triple. My own bike's a Tiger 800, and for me, it's the ideal blend of smoothness and mid-range, as well as a bit of revvy fun at the top. Then you've got this sweet chassis, and it just goes exactly where you point it. And with this up-spec RS version, everything just feels absolutely on point. The ride quality is excellent, and you've got all the adjustability you could need. So soften it up a little bit for the road or make it super firm and sporty for the track. And these BREMBO STYLEMA brakes with the radial master cylinder, they're as crisp as it gets, and with loads and loads of power, absolutely more than enough for road riding. Am I that bothered about the tech? Well, not massively. Bikes like this, I tend to just stick them in sports mode and get on with it. I don't want to be wasting a second, you know, stopping and pairing my phone, because it's basically road bike perfection. So that's that then, it's a closed case. There's barely any point in riding the 675, is there? Well, clearly jumping over to this bike, you can tell how far the Street Triple has come. It is a big evolution into a much more powerful, more sporty bike that can, you know, mix it with any other middleweight naked currently on the market. This one was always going to feel a little bit less sharp in some ways, less aggressive in the riding position, you're more sat up, and also, like, yeah, a lot less techie. But what I've loved about riding this bike today is how you can feel the essence of the Street Triple and the sort of DNA that's run all the way through to that modern bike. I mean, sure, the engine is quite a bit down on power, but still over 100 horses is lots of fun on the road, and there's actually quite a nice amount of snap in the throttle, and of course there's no riding modes to mess about with, so you just kind of get on with it. And you've still got that sound and character and versatility of the triple cylinder layout, and then of course you got the handling. I mean, it's not quite as well sprung and it's not quite as crisp on the brakes, but the fundamentals are there. It's an agile bike, it's maneuverable, it's chuckable, perhaps even more so with this one because it is more compact. It's just a super fun little bike and it's simple. Time to hand it back over to Superbike Factory, and honestly, I wish I had another day with it. Clearly, if you want the latest spec and the more flashy modern looks, and if you like the plethora of buttons and menus on the new bike, then absolutely have at it. The 2023 bikes are excellent. But if they're out of budget and you just want the fundamental heart of a Street Triple, then you can absolutely get that for give or take $5,000. Like I say, that's about half the price, but in many ways it's more than half as good, and so do check out the link down in the description below if that sounds like your cup of tea. As always, I'd love to know which bike you'd pick down in the comments, so do let me know. And if you do have your heart set on a new one, then I've got a comparison of the R and RS models to help you choose, which I shot at the launch earlier this year, so please do give it a click and give it a watch. Many thanks for watching today, and we'll catch you in the next one.